Well, we say canopy cover is, when you fly into a city, what does it look like green-wise? And Winnipeg is one of the best in North America when you fly in the summertime and see the canopy cover that we have. I mean, if we're not world-renowned, we should be, because we have the best there is.
Every time we think of trees, we think of a story, and the trees here are so diverse and so vigorous because this is riverbank soil and very good soil.
Typically, if people are surrounded by trees or they can go to an area with trees, it has a significant positive impact on their general well-being. And I think that's something that we certainly see in Winnipeg.
Arbor Days every day where I am, and because of that I feel compelled to get as many kids up here to experience this so they can understand how much importance there is on what these trees do. It takes guys like us and people in this industry to make kids aware of that, because kids need that direction. You know, the most common wholesome things, you know, what made things tick. Trees, carbon dioxide to oxygen. The more trees we have, the more oxygen we get. And the last time I checked, we're putting on more people every year, drawing more oxygen, and less trees every year are available to support that. Thank you, Alexis. Good job. I feel, after years of doing this, that I probably didn't give enough back to get kids doing this first, and I want some more smart ones. I'm not against high school dropouts, don't get me wrong, but I'd like to see some more university educated smart people that don't want to spend their times in a cubicle. So when they grow up, they remember this day and they see this as a viable option when they go to plant sciences at the U of M or any of these other fine institutions. But this is all for kids.
I want more kids! Give me a kid, don't walk away from me, I see you all!
Excited to go up in the tree? Have you been up in a tree before?
No, maybe climbed it.
I'll do that again.
No ropes, no way.
The more times that we get more stuff like this going on, You know, I mean, nobody sees this type of thing. Nobody. I mean, you can look at the sensational garbage that's on American loggers, heli loggers, and all this stuff that's designed to make people think that the tree world is the most dangerous place in the world and only crazy men would do it. That's not the case. Look around and see what we see in the canopy of a beautiful elm tree after the rain. This is Promethean. Hope I'm getting that word right, Mike. Daring, or frowsy, that's my other word, the unkept appearance. He's frowsy with Promethean tendencies. Look around now, they're all wondering what to do, eh? We know what we're doing. We're already doing it.
The city was planted with the original plantings of trees back between about 1880 and about 1920. And most of those trees were elm and ash trees. And many of these trees actually came out of the riverbanks. People and companies at that time, nursery companies, actually dug them out of the riverbanks.
Well, the Heritage Tree Program is something that Trees Winnipeg has started, and they're working with the Manitoba Forestry Association on this. And Heritage Trees in Manitoba was a publication that was put out, produced by the Manitoba Forestry Association.
Our program was established in 1985. It was a program that was developed to address or increase awareness of the special trees here in the province. And what we did is we went to asked the public's participation in nominating special trees that were in their communities and in their neighborhoods. So we asked people to nominate trees that might have had an historical significance, one that might have been, a very large tree or a very old tree, or one that had a very unique growth pattern or characteristic to it, or one that had some cultural significance. So we had an overwhelming response to our program, and therefore we had produced the Heritage Trees in Manitoba book, which is basically an honor roll of special trees.
We certainly have heritage trees in Winnipeg. We have lost some of those that were originally in the book that the MFA produced, but it's just a matter of, it's a means of getting people out there and looking at their trees and acknowledging that, we've really got some significant trees in Winnipeg. Let's celebrate them. Let's get them out there in the public eye. And there's also an idea to create an inventory for those heritage trees as a means of trying to protect them as well. important for an arborist to understand the interaction that we have with trees and the relationship that we have with trees. And trees can be handled in a variety of different ways depending on the conditions that they're growing in and depending on the situation. I think it's important to realize that.
The role that arborists play is a very important role, as what they do is they can come in and they actually remove the trees, because without the removal of them, the trees stay around. It provides breeding grounds for the elm bark beetle, and what you basically want to do is remove those breeding grounds so that you don't attract the beetles and then therefore, spread the disease.
It's not something that just anybody can do. You need to have an understanding of the tree's system, how it grows, how it functions, so that whatever work you are having done, particularly if the tree is being pruned, you have to make sure that it's being done correctly.
This is obviously right next to a tree that looks like and exhibits all the signs of a tree that has DED, right next to one that still looks pretty good, but has the markings of DED on it. The green ones are ones that apparently or have structural issues or some reason that makes them unsafe to have in the park. This tree we have here is an example of that. There's really a dead top in it. The rest of the tree, to me, is fine, but it's not my decision to make. The tree comes out, so I'll take it out.
Screwed up this is. I'd like this off here as fast as possible. All the weight is leaning hard out that way, so there's no doubt about where it's actually going to go. The worst case scenario for us would be that this was to fall into the adjacent elm tree and then flip upside down. That's what we'd like to not see. Stand clear, guys.
Ten years ago, if you looked at the forest industry in Canada, basically they had the highest fatality and injury rate of any professional industry Canada-wide. It is a very dangerous business.
When I'm working in the trees, I'm responsible for everybody there. There's all kinds of opportunity here to have catastrophic results. Still on? This place is just a little bit pissed off today that we're here doing this. This is the same kind of weather I had the day I fell, and this messy old ash tree is just responsible. These are living organisms. I know they can get mad. And whatever I was doing that day, I obviously didn't do it, you know. It threw me out, but it let me live. So I descended down about 20, 25 feet and jumped over to where the branches first start. And then I sort of ambled my way up, advancing my safety line into the very top of the ash tree. I wanted to go to the next tree, the elm. And you can see the way the ropes are configured that the plan was to come down about 25 feet or so, jump over to the next tree and repeat that. And, somewhere in there the wires got crossed. I jumped from where my rope is touching the tree up there and just kept going. March 26th, a couple of years ago when my face hit the dirt. I got a connection there to the root system of that ash tree, you know? And every tree since then, you know, I bless, I talk to them, I offer tobacco, I do the things I have to do to get peace about going up. That could be the last meeting of living tissue I ever have in my world.
When it hit home what had happened, it was really unsettling because Dave is such an experienced guy, and he was training other people to climb and how to get up to the upper canopy to trim back the deadwood, and it was shocking that this had happened to Dave because he was the master, and it was really unsettling to think that it happened in our yard. And then when we found out how badly he was injured, it was pretty traumatic. I disabled my climbing system, which is hard to say on camera. You know, you make yourself look like an idiot, but you know, every guy that ever accidentally stepped off the curb and got hit by a bus or tripped and fell off a mountain doing something, those are accidents and things that can happen because you make one simple mistake and you can pay for your life just because you made a simple mistake.
It's actually amazing that he lived, to be honest. I mean, you'll see the branch that he fell out of. It's got to be 65 feet in the air.
I guess I hit the ground doing roughly 40 kilometers an hour, and the injuries you get from that are blood stops and keeps moving, and it bruises. And luckily, I probably hit the ground going the speed appropriate for life, I guess.
And he fell on a portion of the sidewalk, which is made up with railway ties along the edges and then brick in the middle. So, you know, he didn't even hit the ground. He hit this awful piece of sidewalk, and I guess that's why the leg just shattered.
Well, I can see, you know, that I landed pretty much the only place I could land that was gonna keep me safe. There's a lot in that soil right there that I don't have anymore. It's the most dangerous profession that I know of and that I've seen documented evidence on. Just on the arborist trade that we know of, we're dealing with a fatality rate that is at least 2.5 times higher than any other trade that I know of. I mean, when you have that type of fatality, either one of two things is happening. Either the job is just so dangerous that no matter how well trained you are, you're gonna die. Commercial divers have a dangerous job, but they don't die at the same rate we do because there's stringent enforcement. Lots of things take place. Our fatalities happen because people are idiots. I don't wish it on any other climber that I know. For as many that say that wouldn't happen to me when I walk out of the room, you know, I know that can't be me. I can't be that guy saying that would never happen to me, because I know that it can happen to everybody. And those that don't are just full of shit. You know, if you don't try and push and do things, then I guess that you could have nothing happen.
Dutch elm disease first arrived in Manitoba in 1975. And what Dutch elm disease is, it's a fungus. It's a fungus that is transferred from elm tree to elm tree by a little tiny beetle that you can barely see with the naked eye. And this beetle burrows through the bark, and it lives just underneath the bark in the living tissue between the bark and kind of the harder, deader portions of the inside of the tree, basically.
Dutch elm disease is a wilt fungus, and it does not spread through airborne spores or anything like that. It actually has to be spread by a vector in one way. And that vector primarily for us is our native elm bark beetle. If it emerges from a diseased tree and it has the fungal spores on its body, then it actually transfers those spores into a healthy tree or another tree. And that's typically how the disease spreads.
Basically what Dutch elm disease does is it grows from kind of top to bottom in a tree or bottom to top, depending where it's infected. And it basically plugs up the circulatory system. So it's like plugging up the veins in a person. And in this case, it's the different vessels that carry the nutrients in the water from the top of the tree or the bottom of the tree, depending on which vessels it blocks. It grows, blocks them up. So the tree basically starves to death. Interesting enough, these beetles that carry Dutch elm disease and bore into the tree don't harm the tree at all, and they've evolved with these trees in North America over thousands of years, and they're absolutely no harm. They don't even know what the fungus is. They don't eat it or anything like that. They're just quite happy living underneath the bark.
The fungus that causes Dutch elm disease was brought in, we believe, or it's believed was brought in by firewood. By a firewood pile. So it was infected wood that was brought into the area, and it was first identified around St. John's Ravenscourt School in Winnipeg along the Red River. We estimate we have about 150,000 elms in Winnipeg now. Before DED came along, or Dutch elm disease came along back in 1975, we estimate we had about 280,000 elms. And so if you do the math, that's roughly, we've lost about, 130,000 elms since Dutch elm disease came along. If we hadn't implemented any kind of Dutch elm disease management program, by 1995, based on our estimates of an 18% loss rate per year, we would have had next to nothing left in regards to our elm population.
We are the only city with a sustainable management program to control Dutch elm disease, and we've had ever since the disease came into the area in 1975.
The program is designed basically to slow the loss of the trees, because there is no cure for Dutch elm disease, but there's many activities we can do that will actually slow down the growth of the disease and protect many of the trees.
When you look in some of the other cities like Minneapolis and some of the other American cities that had Dutch elm disease, they didn't have management programs in place, and they lost almost all their elms, and in a very short period of time, and the cost was phenomenal.
And the whole idea is that, the dead and decaying trees are a breeding ground for these elm bark beetles. And the whole idea is that, to be able to prevent that and to keep it kind of localized, you want to make sure that all of the dead and dying wood is being removed, and you don't want that transfer of those spores to healthy elm trees in your area. So removal is absolutely critical.
Firewood gets moved about. So our big thing is with the coalition, public education-wise, just don't move firewood anywhere. It doesn't matter what kind it is. Keep it where it is.
Any elm wood has to be disposed of at a secured landfill site. And in the city of Winnipeg, the only secure landfill site we have is Brady Road landfill. And when the material is deposited there, it actually gets buried. And so burying the wood is one way to dispose of it properly. Anyone who is working in the city of Winnipeg who is removing elm, they are required to transport that wood directly to Brady landfill.
So as you can see, they already told us don't come back here. So this is the wood dump, but they want me to go somewhere else. So because I don't listen, we're here. Watch yourself. I mean, we basically broke in here to dump this here. Where's the city of Winnipeg going? Is there a recycling program going on I don't know about? That the wood isn't here and they have a special city place? And the place is just full of contractors. One just drove by, honking and waving. He ain't going to the wood dump because we're standing in it. There's no machine right now available in the city of Winnipeg that can deal with this. And what difference does it make when elm bark beetles live underneath the bark? Why is it okay for this stuff to sit here like this with bark all over it when the landfill ends right there? It's still the same disease-ridden wood right there that it is right here. And this has been sitting here for ages. And elm bark beetles live under this. You notice how it's still friggin' wet? Not a scientist, but my understanding was you couldn't use this wood if it had bark attached to it because it lets beetles live. So there's beetles living under that bark somewhere, but it's okay because it's at the landfill. All this wood mulch, everything that we have here should be either being mulched or this stuff here that has no bark on it could easily be used. I mean, it's not the best choice to cut it up and burn it, but it's certainly better to use it as a fuel than it is to just let the shit just rot away. There's nothing wrong with wood that has no bark. Let's assume then that the city agrees, that everyone agrees that this is the best thing to do with elm, to take it to a big pile and dump it with plastic garbage bags and other wood with nails in it and baby carriages and sheet metal. That's not the best thing to do. It's what I have to do by law. But every log here could be debarked and used for some other purpose instead of being here. It's just a matter of saying you have to do it, and if you don't do it, you're not allowed to get an arborist license to work in Manitoba. Like, you just make the law and say that's what it is.
We do have a bit of a concern with that, with how the wood is handled in the industry in general, because we do find a lot of firewood piles during our firewood monitoring period throughout the summer every year. And our landfill site and the province actually have levies and tipping fees on elm wood. It's an extra cost to them, which they have to pass on to the homeowner or to their customer. And so that is a concern, that there's tipping fees associated with that, and it's not really, it's probably discouraging some from taking the wood to the landfill site.
$100, I made 3 figures, eh? Excellent. I guessed 101. I think it was 110, I said. Every time I come here, my kid misses a semester of school. It's a really cheap school he goes to. $100. Plus the time to get here, load the truck, drive here, 2 hours of my time. So it's not just the 100, it's the $150 an hour I gotta charge. So really, $150, we'll say $300. It's about $400 to get rid of that truckload of stuff. But I try to pass that on to a client in Winnipeg and they lose their noodle because every other contractor just takes it somewhere else. The business end of this is 3/4-inch planer blades, 2 of them mounted on the end of the chainsaw. Somebody else developed the system itself. I developed it and worked on the configuration of it attached to a bigger saw and using it for this application. That's where we came in. We just upped the saw and turned it into something that's helping control the spread of a disease. You have to know how to handle a saw. It's a requirement. time. Dwayne Newstetter says that all the time. That means boom. So I say boom from the perspective that the log is now usable for something. A couple of minutes, it's firewood or it's boards. Otherwise, it's at the landfill. And we know what I think of that.
Ash borer is an invasive species and is very destructive at that. It's a small little metallic bug.
It's actually a beetle that feeds on the phloem tissue in the tree, and the phloem tissue is the tissue that conducts the sugars through photosynthesis throughout the tree.
What they do is they reproduce. So as they reproduce, the eggs start hatching, the larvae start emerging, and the larvae then start digging tunnel. It's right underneath the bark, and this is a very important layer for a tree.
When this beetle bores into the wood, it cuts off the flow of nutrients in the tree, basically strangles to death. So death is quite similar in terms of the effect on the tree.
And unfortunately, this emerald ash borer, when it comes, and it will come to Manitoba, will totally consume and kill every native ash.
This beetle will come in, and from its behavior, from what we've seen so far, it will take several years, at least 3 years or 4 years, before you'll actually see a tree suddenly to fail.
That's why it's a very insidious pest, because you just don't know how far it's gone. And it's once you find it, it's already built up a pretty significant population in that area.
The ash are a large component of the trees that have been planted, in the last 35 years. So we've again created another monoculture. It was a monoculture of elm, now it's a monoculture of ash. But the issue of diversity really has not been on the forefront until about the last 5 years. And what's changed in the last 5 years? It's a 3-letter word, EAB, emerald ash borer.
Emerald ash borer is potentially going to reach here in the natural course of events, and we need alternatives to grow. We need good, reliable trees to replace our ash, so we don't plant just ash.
One of the rules of urban forestry is to always have a diversified forest. So you want to plant as many tree species as possible. It's a little harder in Winnipeg because of our climate. We tend not to have as many tree species that do well here.
Cold hardiness is on the Canadian prairies in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta. Cold hardiness is the #1 factor, that if it doesn't have cold hardiness, the other attributes to the tree aren't that important because the tree has to survive. We saw, as a Western Nursery Growers Group member, we saw that all these other programs, government programs, university programs, have all shut down. So we said, well, we need to do a test ourselves. And then we also decided, let's do a test that will last a generation 25 to 30 years.
This is not something that we can do in 1 or 2 year wonder. It's a long, determined effort. Trees are such long-lived plants. Often it can take a lifetime of work to accomplish that.
It's great for us to be able to plant indigenous species and native material, but at the same time, a lot of that native material doesn't grow very well under our urban conditions. And so we have people like Rick and Wilbert that are working towards that, so we can still have trees growing under these stressful urban conditions.
Holy jeez, eh? The People's Utility shows up with 4 or 5 guys, 2 bucket trucks. Woo! everybody has arrived a little bit behind schedule, but Hydro is here, the wood guy is here, but the most important people, the ones that should be here the earliest, the traffic people, haven't arrived. When you have 6 hours to do something and everybody here is costing me a lot of money to be standing around doing nothing. It's funny, the private sector contractor who looks after traffic is the one that's not here. My nephew Jason, Sheldon, Chartrand, Paul Schmiel. These two guys have apprenticed with me and worked with me and for me on various capacities for at least 4 or 5 years. And I'm the old horse. I'll be your tour guide for the day. We've signed our lives away, and now it's up to the utility guys to do tree work. They have a different approach than we do, but they get to work around live power. I'm running one crew, there's another contractor, but everybody here is basically working under Manitoba Hydro while they have this job site. So we're here just supporting them until they get the tree down to a certain height, and then I'm gonna climb into it and bring the rest of the tree down while they move their stuff and they move the traffic. Notice a difference between what utility guys do and how tree guys do trees. It should look a lot smoother and more efficient. The saws will run better. Their saws are loose, dull. They're using things and one-handing things. We'll do things more tree-oriented than what they're doing. I'm happy now that we have control of the site. We're doing tree work. Right till this point, we're just in a support role. So I'd like us to do more and them do less, really. And then this would probably go about 50% faster. Stayed working through the rain without stopping. I mean, the difference between private sector people a lot of times is we're driven to get done as fast as we can. You own a business, you want to get stuff done as fast as you can. The morning went very well. You can see the sun has come out and we reached the halfway point. And I firmly believe that without too much trouble, we'll have this all wrapped up before the sun goes down this evening. Yeah. My nephew's first day in the world of arboriculture. This is my brother Donnie's second oldest.
How you liking it? I think it's great. I love working outside.
Have you been up a tree yet?
Not yet. Well, not with him anyways.
Yeah, recreational. right here. Cut it out right here first. Good, hold it right there. I love that.
The historical significance of the elms on Broadway first is that they are some of the oldest elms that we have in that immediate downtown area. Broadway itself is a significant stretch or a significant route in our downtown area where it's flanked by our provincial legislative grounds and the old CN rail yard and historic building and the Forks Historic Site.
If you look at an urban tree, especially one that's planted in downtown or high traffic areas, the lifespan generally is less than 10 years because they get hit by cars, salt spray kills all the buds, and they eventually die back. They really have a tough time. We've kind of spearheaded a program to improve the health of the current trees that are there and have a look at different ways of managing those trees to ensure that they stay healthy.
So Coalition Save the Elms, along with the City of Winnipeg and Tree Canada, started a program. We had some initial funding from Tree Canada through their Green Streets program to get those trees pruned, to do a tree replacement program, and we are also working with the University of Winnipeg, who is doing the research to monitor the trees after the soil treatments have been applied, and they're doing a 5-year monitoring program for that to see the impact of those treatments. And so that's generally what's been happening with the Broadway Tree Rehabilitation Program, and really we see the Coalition Save the Elms or Trees Winnipeg as taking the lead in that program.
The Lights on Broadway project is a multifaceted event that's going to be occurring over 3 days, September 10th, 11th, and 12th of 2010. And the primary focus of our event is to celebrate the lighting of 4 boulevards. We're bringing in lighting designers from across North America that are going to demonstrate some different lighting techniques to properly and sustainably light trees in an urban environment. And so we consulted with the City Forestry Department. We engaged Save the Elms Coalition, and we've put together a technical committee as well as a fundraising committee. And we're hoping to get the thing launched on Friday, September 10th, which is the install, and the actual lighting display will occur on the 11th and the 12th.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce a man you probably all know very well, the mayor of this beautiful city, Mr. Sam Cates.
Thank you very much. First of all, what a great evening. Ron Paley and the big band, people dancing in Memorial Park. It's great to be here in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. Thank you all for being here today. 2 years ago, I got a call from, spoke to Stefano Grande and Kevin Donnelly, and they talked about Lights on Broadway. Thought it was a great idea, and lo and behold, here we are today. And I just want to thank them, because that's where the idea started, and it's a fantastic concept. I want to thank the 3 lighting designers who are participating in this, as well as the jurors who will make a final decision. And all I can say, it's a great evening, and from my point of view, I hope you agree with me, this is definitely an annual event. Thank you all for being here.
Are we ready? Now remember, when they press that plunger down, the lights will light up, but we need you to look that way for the effect, because that's where the lights are. Everybody, can you count with me? 3, 2, 1.
Wow!
We have a large history being in a floodplain like this and in this area. I mean, to have the kind of trees we have is just phenomenal. You fly in here, you see green, which means lots of green, lots of oxygen, lots of other things, and the biodiversity that comes with that versus cities that have no canopy cover. There's going to be, I think people are just going to be happier, and the animals and the happy and everything goes better when you have more oxygen and more birds and more trees to be able to have that kind of habitat. Everything starts from the ground up. And when we have that kind of canopy cover, it's an astounding accomplishment to what people did when they planted these things back in the day.